Welcome to PM Express Business Edition. The Bank of Ghana, in its recent assessment of the economy, forecasted that the economy will end the year growing more than 2%, giving an indication that the economy is now picking up strongly post the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. The finance minister also said that really we're going to end the year doing far better than what they have projected. But in all these things, what are the roles of the development partners and the World Bank in aiding the recovery of this economy? What are they going to do differently? Are they satisfied with how we're doing things so far, or we have to do things a little bit better? Well, I'm privileged to engage the country director for the World Bank, Mr. Pierre Laporte. Good day, sir, and thank you for engaging us in your offer. I hope I got the name Pierre Laporte or Laporte.
It's fine.
Pierre Laporte.
Thank you very much. It's good. It's good. Yeah.
But how are you doing, sir?
No, look, thank you very much first for having me here. Pleasure to be here. No, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like everybody else, coping with the situation with COVID. But, you know, doing well. Happy to be here in Ghana.
Working from home, or I mean, I've seen quite little hands here in the office here. And how interesting has it been for you? You always had a very busy schedule looking at your resume and all the rest. And now, because of COVID, things have to change a little bit. How smooth has it been for you? How tough or challenging, or listen, it's something that we all have to adopt because of COVID?
Definitely, we've had to adapt like everybody else. You know, the World Bank offices across the world have been closed mostly since the lockdown globally. We are now taking steps to gradually begin soft reopenings. But, you know, we've been mostly working from home, and I must say that it's gone very well. You know, the World Bank is a huge institution, and the infrastructure has been good. And it's been very helpful to be in a country like Ghana, where the IT systems, the telecommunication systems are generally at good standards that have allowed us to really work from home and with minimal disruption to our programs. So we've been able to deliver as planned.
What do you make of how things have been handled by government in terms of the economy and COVID?
Well, first to say, before going to that, you know, it's really unfortunate, not just for the world, but a country like Ghana, where things have been really going well. I mean, the numbers speak, not me. Ghana had been on a trajectory of stronger growth that it's in recent years. Inflation had been declining at a relatively low level compared to recent past. So it was unfortunate that COVID disrupted this. But having said that, we have all observed that Ghana has dealt with the COVID very well. Ghana is seen as an example of how African countries have dealt with COVID, not just in terms of moving very fast and swift to take the necessary precautions to lock down the country, ensure that the general population adhere to the general rules of social distancing, etc. But also, the way government has moved to swiftly support the population. For instance, you know, there's been subsidies on electricity, water. Government has also moved to begin implementing the coronavirus recovery program, and the World Bank has been very happy to support that. You
came with some support and some clarity on that one. Why did the bank come in to do this? Because the problem has always been that whether these support will go to touch those right sectors that we are all looking forward to. You did advance some support to government in trying to help them manage this COVID-19 or coronavirus, right?
Yeah, look, on the one hand, our program generally have not been disrupted because programs continue. As I say, implementation has been challenging. However, the World Bank moved swiftly also to approve a $12 billion package for COVID. And within that, we moved very fast to provide Ghana with a package of initially $105 million, which included $35 million in the tranche provided by the bank, and 65 plus 5 through restructuring of existing programs. So this allowed us to bring very fast and effective support in the early phase of the COVID. And as I speak today, our board will be presented with a second package for Ghana of $130 million for the COVID response. So we're hoping that by this evening we will get good news that this has been approved, but we wait for the board first.
You told me that the board is going to again look at another request. Does it mean that it will bring to the total a little over $200 million? So we should expect more support from the board in terms of requests that has been made by government, or these are just a free hand for the Christmas coming from the board?
No, it's not a free hand. It's, the World Bank was created to help development, right? Over time, our focus has been more on the developing world. And it's our duty to support countries in need. And each country gets a certain level of support based on your population size, your GDP size, etc. And for Ghana, we were able to mobilize, like I said, totally we will mobilize for COVID specifically. By today, we would have mobilized $240 million, and we expect in the next 6 months to come with an additional of around $20 million for vaccines, because this is a new thing. And the World Bank has also approved a package to support countries access vaccines, and we are discussing with government. We have about $20 million available for that, and that later down the line.
So you're looking at a little over $200 million before the year ends?
Definitely before the year end, $240 million, and hopefully by June next year, another 20, that will be 260.
In doing all these things, and I know for your sister institution, even the IMF, their concern was that, listen, we want to make sure that these funds are used for the dedicated purpose or the rationale behind the request for this support. I know you do it for other programs as well. Are you going to lax the rules because it's COVID, or you have strategies in place to ensure that when I advance X amount of money to government under COVID, it is used for that purpose?
First, to say that I understand and I appreciate that it's normal for everybody to feel apprehensive about, are these monies really being spent the right way? And this is a genuine concern. But I can assure you that, can assure the population that where the World Bank is concerned, the way we implement projects and support, it's very difficult to have lapse in procurement or governance issues. Why? Because every time we provide funding, except for budget support, any project, including COVID, we don't give the money to government just like that. There is a project implementation unit that is set up by the World Bank and the government, and all the staff, all the procedures manual, everything are approved by the bank. Each and every procurement that takes place, whether it's direct sourcing or whether it's through tendering, has eventually to be approved by government. For COVID, because it's an emergency, the bank does allow certain relaxation of, say, procurement processes, but eventually each and every contract that is awarded are audited, are verified, and if ever down the line the bank discovers that certain procedures were not followed in one contract, government is asked to refund this money. It's a normal practice. But what I can assure people is that we take every step, and we are confident in the processes that are in place. Because, I've said that before, the money that the World Bank brings is not the money of the staff. It's the funds that the shareholders provide. Some shareholders are lenders in the bank, some shareholders are borrowers. So we have all the advanced economies that provide funds, and it's our duty to ensure that we protect the resources through the right procedures. But also, remember, the World Bank, Ghana is a member of the World Bank. So when the World Bank gives money to Ghana, it's also protecting the country and the people. So with this in mind, we are very confident that the processes that we take do preserve integrity of our funds.
You talked about the development bank as well.
Yeah.
What informed the World Bank decision to approve a request from Ghana for us to go into this whole development bank, since some say that there are other banks that might be doing similar support as well, and for you to even approve $250 million to Ghana?
First, it's not $250 million only to the development bank. There are other support within this. It's more a development finance project. Really, that's the name of the project. The development bank is one component. There's guarantee fund. There's other types of institutional support that we will give to the financial services generally. But look, the reality is that, yes, banks do the best they can, but we all know the reality also is that there are areas that are very risky that sometimes banks will not go. It's not that they do something wrong, it's the nature of the types of risks that commercial banks take. And we believe that supporting the development bank will allow, the aim really is to go in the areas where banks consider more risky and where government, through resources that they are getting, not just from us, but from other development partners, will go into these spaces, more risky spaces, to really complement what commercial banks are doing. And really, as you know, a reality is in Africa, access to finance. Go everywhere, do any survey, ask businesses what are the top 5 constraints, and they will tell you always access to finance. So whilst I believe and understand maybe the concerns that, are we overstepping the space of the commercial banks? I don't think so, because I believe that, like I said, it's a special area where we feel plugging the holes where the commercial banks may not want to go.
Just some clarity from you, then help me out. So in terms of this whole $250 million, what component is directly going to the bank? Is it a seed funding or more of operational funding support for the bank?
No, it's the largest component of the project. It's a credit line.
Okay.
We are not investing in equity.
Okay.
It's a credit line. But just one thing I want to also emphasize here. We've had some concerns about development banks, because the reality is that there's been many instances in the past across the world where development banks have failed because especially wrong governance structures which allow politicians to get involved. But in Ghana, we were very clear from day one with government. If you want us to support the development bank, there are certain minimum governance setups that have to be there. For instance, it's an independent board with private operators there. There are a whole lot of modern government systems that we have in place. Like I say, we are not lending directly to businesses. We're lending actually to financial institutions, including commercial banks who may want to access these resources. So our concern was really to make sure that we bring support to Ghana, to an institution that is based on good practices, modern practices of development that exist around the world. Nigeria next door is one. Turkey are good examples of development bank. And we're hoping that over time, and the law allows for it, that private sector can come and be a shareholder in that bank eventually. So that's our wish.
And you think that they won't suffer the examples in Ghana where we had the Bank for Housing and Construction and other similar banks in the past that went down?
I agree with you, but it's the governance. Governance is key. And that's why for us it was conditional that government accepts that the modern governance framework that don't open doors for this kind of abuse by politicians. We don't believe in this case because we really tighten the screws around the structures.
So is it a loan facility? Is it a grant or?
It's a loan. It's a loan, but a long-term loan. So we're hoping that again, one of the challenges in the developing world is the tenure of loans to businesses are very, very short, and this puts a lot of pressure on businesses. So by providing long-term funding, we will help ease the burden of repayment on businesses.
Laporte, I'll come back to you and ask you for your expectation as to when this thing finally takes off in January. This is a PM Express Business Edition looking at the role of our development partners, the World Bank, in aiding the recovery of the economy post-easing of COVID-19 restrictions for the economy and the country, Ghana. Be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we look at the role of our development partners. And it means to say that the World Bank in aiding the recovery of the economy in Ghana. Mr. Pierre Laporte is the country director for the World Bank, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia as well. And thank you so much as we were following up on the discussion on development bank. So for you at the bank, what are your expectations for this thing that is supposed to, all other things being equal, taken off from January 2021?
Our expectation is that it takes off quickly. The first thing is sometimes we have challenges when we approve a project. It takes time for all the necessary approvals in place. The good thing is that the Parliament has already approved this project now, so our hope is that it continues quickly because in a way it's timely. We were just talking earlier about what COVID has done to businesses, to SMEs. So the Development Bank comes at a very good time. And our hope is that the authorities can move quickly, put it in place, and start delivering to businesses. And like I said, my second hope, if I can put it that way, is that the board, the government, through its participation, make sure that we really use the development bank as a tool for what it was used for. Go there, do not compete with banks in the classical way, but go there, fill the gaps where businesses feel today they are not getting the necessary support. So our hope is really down the line that we can look back and say that this is an institution that we created, it delivered on its results, and it was able to bring support to the country, not just at a difficult time, but through a sustained period of time.
In your earlier remarks, you spoke about how we were on the track to strong economic gains, and then COVID-19 came in, and then we had lockdown and all the rest. Globally, there's talk about second wave. Here in Ghana, we've seen cases pick up slightly. What is your advice to government in terms of what we have to do, both on the economic side, and since you also talk about social economy as well, the World Bank, to ensure that we manage the shocks that might come with any second wave so that things doesn't get out of hand totally?
I'm not a health expert, but my advice really is to first go to the basics. Go back to make sure that people are sensitized to keep the social distancing practices, wearing masks, washing hands, etc. This is fundamental to the fight against COVID. Then I would say that the government should look back on the last few months. What are the lessons learned? What are things that have made Ghana a good example of a country that has managed the process, not just the health impact, but also the economic? Learn lessons from what has happened in the recent months. Learn lessons on negative experiences that have happened in recent months. Put them aside, don't repeat them. Do not get complacent. The rising numbers are a sign that things need to be relooked at. The government, I'm sure they know the best thing to do, but this is a sign that things need to be relooked at, and things need to be firmed up. What has been loosened that might have contributed to these numbers, look at those. But above all, don't be complacent and use the numbers as an indication of what government needs to do.
Looking at COVID again, and I say that I want to maybe the way we've managed things might be good for us as you look at how some economies, UK has been hit badly by the second wave and all the rest. Ghana might have done a little bit good in terms of how we manage things and all the rest. But for you, what is your biggest fear? That you hope that the gains will not be eroded again, or what?
My biggest fear is that both government and the people become complacent and say, oh, it's just a few hundred cases. We've dealt with this before. We will deal with it now. This is the biggest recipe to disaster. Really, as I said, there's been good lessons learned. Ghana is an example of good testing practices. I think it's one of the countries that have done most tests than others. Keep testing, do more tests. We're bringing more resources to the table. Use those, put in place the facilities. Don't think because now COVID had been declining, we relax. So just don't be complacent and learn lessons, and don't be complacent.
Earlier you talked about some support for vaccines, and I stand to be educated. Was it about developing local vaccines or helping countries like Ghana to be able to get into the pool of buying these vaccines? We heard recently about Pfizer making some very interesting discovery for us.
It's the latter. We will not be investing funds in helping Ghana do its own vaccines. That's not for us to do. So, like I said, the bank approved a package for vaccines to support countries. And as part, actually, ideally, what we are approving today by the board, we would have wanted to include a portion for vaccine. But because internally, even though we've approved to help countries to buy vaccines, all the procedures, the internal processes are still being worked on, and we thought it was not ready. At the same time, while we will put money on the table for Ghana to buy vaccines, I'm not a medical expert, but the few things I've learned in recent weeks is that it's not a very simple thing. Ghana, like other countries, have to be very careful. The whole setup of buying vaccines, storing vaccines, distributing vaccines, ensuring you get the right vaccine, ensuring that the right people get access. So it's a complex issue, and we will be supporting through financial support, but I'm sure at the same time, you know, we stand ready to help government in these more institutional, you know, advisory and other things that we can bring to the table.
We are in an election year, and there's always the biggest fear of any development partner about prudent expenditure, managing the books well. From what you've seen in the budget, media budget, and all the data that are available to you as well, are you worried, or you think that, okay, maybe we are on track? Things haven't been that worse as we used to see in election when it comes to expenditure. How are things? How are you seeing things in terms of election year, i.e. government expenditure?
I am generally an optimistic person. It is true, it's not me saying, but the facts show that normally during election years in Ghana, there is a tendency to overshoot expenditures relative to normal years. I am hoping, like I said, the Minister of Finance and his team are smart people. I work with them all the time. We trust that they know that it's not a good thing during election year to go overboard. Of course, it's going to be difficult this time because of the COVID, because the numbers are all over the place, even the deficit figures. As you know, the fiscal responsibility law has been suspended. So it's going to be difficult to really establish this year how much, to what extent there'll be more spending than normal, because we are not in a normal time. But like I said, you know, government knows the situation. We didn't talk about debt. Ghana's debt situation is not the greatest. Ghana is a country considered today at high risk of debt distress. Ghana was on the right track also on its debt trajectory. In 2018, the GDP ratio was 63%. It was about 59 last year, but now with COVID, we expect it to go up in the 68, 69%, the GDP ratio. So it's even more urgent for government now during election not to do that, not to overspend because of elections. This is a time for consolidation. This is the time for government to start thinking, and they have started. We talk about it all the time with the minister. Where can Ghana get more fiscal revenues, not just tax, but indirect revenues, etc. Ghana's revenue GDP ratio is among the lowest in the region, and it's not normal where it is for a country as developed as Ghana. Ghana needs to do more on mobilizing domestic revenues to help create more fiscal space, to help borrowing less and bring down debt. That's one of the things that it has to do. So going back to your question, we're hoping that this doesn't happen because Ghana has a good performance in recent years of economic management, and we are hopeful that this continues.
Normally we see that from September going, we see a spike as well. From the numbers that we are seeing so far in terms of the expenditure again, i.e. in an election year, will I say that you are okay with the numbers, or you're worried about how the numbers are ticking, and that let's watch it because it could be just a matter of time?
Look, I've been in the minister's seat myself as a former finance minister. I know that normally, elections or not, in the last quarter, there tends to be a spike because this is when there's a rush. All the ministries using their budgets that they've not been able to use, all the projects, everybody pushing before, because if you don't use it, you lose the money. But it's very difficult for me to tell you to what extent election is an impact, especially this year. If it's a normal year, I can tell you, you can see the trends very easily. But government is spending more on SMEs on COVID. Government is spending more on health on COVID. So how do you distinguish between what is purely election linked and not? It's very difficult. Like I say, the message for me should be more that government knows that as much as this is a time where it needs to help the people, but also government knows that it needs to be responsible, because at the end of the day, being irresponsible down the line catches up with you. And Ghana is a country that the market, the financial market, feels good about. So any move to try and do things just for an election will not be in the country's advantage, and I guess the leadership knows that.
In classifying Ghana, we moved from a developing country to a lower middle income country. Do you think that we've lived up to that expectation of a low middle income country, or someone saying that it was purely statistics, and looking at our challenges, we still need that support of a developing country than a low middle income country? Did you rush with these assessments?
From what I can tell you, to some extent, yes. To a large extent, yes. But there are challenges and there are areas where you have not. I'll give you one or two examples. If you look at the human capital index, Ghana is a country whose human capital index is among the best in Africa. And strong, solid human capital is a basis as an indicator of where a country is heading or it is. Good infrastructure. Ghana has very good, very strong infrastructure. This is also an indication as to where a country is in stage of development. So very positive things have happened, and we continue to see that. But there are areas where Ghana has not lived up to expectations. Not just now, but for instance, I talked to you earlier about the revenue collection.
Yeah.
A country at this stage of development should be able to do better, collect revenues. I'm not saying increase tax rates.
Yeah.
Leave tax rates, but find ways of making sure everybody pays, find ways of making sure that the system is fast, using IT platforms today to collect taxes faster and to pick up loopholes, close loopholes, reduce exemptions here and there. I think, again, we've had these discussions and we'll continue to support government there. Another area is in the investment climate. Ghana's ranking in the investment climate, I believe it's somewhere around between 100 to 120. It's not good enough. It's not good enough because this is a country that has attracted strong FDI over the years, most largely in petroleum sector. But Ghana, like more developed.
Welcome to PM Express Business Edition. What role can the World Bank play in aiding the growth of this economy and reducing poverty? Can this whole argument about poverty be really alleviated or can be reduced? I'll be getting his thought on that one. He's the country director of the World Bank, Mr. Pierre Laporte. And I was trying to get your thoughts on debt, HIPC. When the World Bank says that the country Ghana or the country Georgia is of a high risk of debt distress, I knew what the textbook would say, but what do you actually mean?
Okay, a country that is high risk of debt distress is generally looked at in terms of, we call that stress tests. Generally, we use certain different tests to see to what extent, given your level of debt, are you vulnerable if certain things would happen. For instance, at the debt level that Ghana is, if, for instance, petroleum prices crash, you need money to pay. So because Ghana is a country that relies on petroleum export, when prices crash, it reduces your ability to pay your debt in a big way. So you're at high risk. If Ghana is a country like exports gold, export commodities, we do a stress test. If the price could drop sharply, what this would mean for your ability to pay. Okay? Domestic revenues. If there was a crisis like COVID now and your domestic revenue will go, to what extent would this mean it affects your ability to repay your debt? And because Ghana is a country that relies on commodities a lot, including petroleum, so this puts Ghana in the category of a country that your debt level is at high risk of putting you in distress. Already your debt level at 60% of GDP is high. It doesn't mean all countries at 60% may be in high risk of debt distress. It depends on what happens if certain events happen and how it affects your ability to repay your debt. And because of the structure of Ghana's economy, it makes you where the debt is today at high risk of debt distress.
When are you going to do the next review in terms of your debt sustainability analysis for Ghana? Because now we've seen that high risk of debt distress.
It's done regularly. It probably will be done in the next 12 months. Normally each time there's either an IMF program, because it's a joint exercise between World Bank and IMF, or each time there's a like a new budget support, important. We're coming in probably second half of 2021. We probably will do an update. It's regularly updated.
From our debt numbers and from all the statistics that you do you see us flipping into a debt-distressed country?
There are risks, but I don't think so. Personally. Why? Because on the one hand, again, if you look at the structure of your debt, a large proportion of Ghana's debt is to multilaterals like World Bank, IMF, the bilaterals, EU, UK, etc. And these are generally long-term debt, okay? And long-term debt are cheap. You pay over a long time, interests are very low, so the risk is minimized. Secondly, Ghana's another important share of Ghana's debt is through the financial market. Again, financial market varies over time, depending on factors, well, exogenous and endogenous, no? But until COVID came, the market was quite liquid, and it's all to do with the perception of the country. There's always money out there, but to the extent that investors feel that this is a country that is going on the right track, they will always either buy your debt instruments or roll over existing debt. Actually, one of the risks for Ghana now is with COVID and the financial market being unstable. It is a risk. But I personally believe once things are normalized, things will be better for Ghana. But a critical point is, again, going back to macroeconomic stability. It's fundamental. The first thing you do when you do a strategy or whatever, if I was doing one, is to make sure that you have macroeconomic stability. Because when you have macroeconomic stability, you don't only protect yourself in terms of overspending and maintaining your debt at good levels, your deficit at reasonable levels. It allows you to maintain your debt low. And it also gives a good perception from the market. So if the market looks at Ghana, looks at other countries, and says this is a country that the macroeconomic situation is good, we see that they are managing the economy well, the indicators are positive, inflation is coming down, deficits are under control, employment is fairly low, domestic revenue mobilization is strong, so they will come. So to the extent that Ghana can maintain that firm, strong macro stability, I don't see things flipping.
I mean, I know that we are now in a new categorization as a country, a low middle income country. But recently there were arguments about the fact that, listen, Ghana can be classified as HIPC because of its debt hitting threatening levels and all the rest. If I should use the old scenario, would I be right in classifying Ghana as HIPC? Or Ghana is not HIPC? Or Ghana can't be HIPC?
I will say once to everybody, categorically, totally, Ghana is not a HIPC country. Okay? HIPC is defined as highly indebted poor country. A country at high risk of debt distress doesn't mean it's a high debt country. That's very important. Because at 60% debt GDP ratio, Ghana is not a high debt country as such. High debt countries in Africa, there's a few of them, I don't know, the Mauritanias, the Cape Verdes, etc., a few others that have debt GDP ratio either near 100% or above. These are high debt countries. But HIPC, going back to this, whatever was published recently is false. HIPC was an exercise that was done several years ago where developing countries, bilaterals and multilaterals came together and said Africa and the rest of the developing world have very high debt levels. We want to help these countries. So what we did, we said, okay, all you countries, we will forgive part of your debt, but subject to certain conditions. There was what you call decision point and completion point. So at decision point, you said, okay, this country is a HIPC country, and we will work with you. If you do certain things, we will bring down your debt. And Ghana reached completion point many years ago, and after that, the story of Ghana as a HIPC country is dead and finished. Ghana is not a HIPC country.
Do you think that we are borrowing too much as a country, or it's about where are these monies being advanced to? Because there are concerns out there that the country Ghana is borrowing too much.
Look, this is a question for for the government to answer. But if you ask me, I would say no. Why I would say no? Because I'm one of those who believe that countries need to borrow to develop. Especially poorer countries. Okay, Ghana happens to have some resources, so it can do better. But I think at the debt level where it is, despite being at a level of high risk of debt distress, I don't think Ghana is borrowing too much. But it is approaching the threshold where if it continues to borrow more, it will flip to being too much. I think at this level now, if Ghana can, like I said, beef up domestic revenue collection, repay some of the debt, or borrow less going forward. At this point in time, it's manageable, but when you are defined at high risk of debt distress, it's telling you you are approaching a point where you need to slow down, or where you need to not do too much more.
Well, what would be the role of the bank actually in, since you're talking about supporting us, aiding our recovery and growth, to help us to also check some of these things where push for more of a grant and the commercial loan. We are planning to do another Eurobond or other things being recalled next year as well. People are worried that, listen, we should rather look forward to repricing these debts and bringing down these debts. But it appears that we are going to the commercial market again to borrow again.
First, it will depend on what terms you go out there and borrow and what amounts you go out there and borrow. I don't have this information, so I cannot really comment on that. But like I say, where you are today, Ghana needs to be careful that it doesn't keep borrowing much more than it is, otherwise it will be in trouble. What the World Bank can do, many things we can do and we've started to do. You see, one important thing is not only look at the debt numbers, but look at debt management practices. Ghana has done well to improve its debt management practices in recent years, not just a system that is in place, but for instance, there's been more transparency in the debt management process. You know, Ghana now regularly publishes debt reports, submits to the Assembly. Ghana regularly updates its debt strategy. And to the extent that this is public, it's good because it allows for more transparency and allows the public to also know what's going on in their country, because after all, it's public resources. We in the World Bank, because of the concerns we have on the debt situation generally in Africa, not just Ghana, but in Africa generally, debt is rising. We've put in place a new system now. In this current cycle of lending, we have 3-year cycles. It's called IDA 19, okay? In IDA 19, for the first time, the bank has said for every country, we will hold back a percentage of your IDA allocation, and in the first 2 years, in the first year and 2 years, you have to prove to us that you are taking steps and measures to improve your debt management and to control your debt better. For countries at high risk of debt distress like Ghana, the holdback is 20% of your IDA allocation. So 1.5 billion is 150, 300 million is sort of held back. As for countries at moderate and low risk, it's 10%. Okay, so in this cycle, we're going to hold back 20% of Ghana's allocation, and we've agreed with government certain actions that it will do in the next couple of years to strengthen further debt management. So we believe that we're putting more checks and balances to ensure that countries do control their debt, because at the end of the day, we provide concessional debt, and we are concerned also that on the one hand we give concessional debt, on the other hand you go to the market and then you repay. So it's all about the treasury management. But bottom line is these are steps that we're taking to try to stem the tide of rising debt in Africa generally.
Going forward into next year, and then there's so much optimism about growth picking up and all the rest. For you at the bank, and even personally as well, what is the biggest threat to this economy going forward into next year? Is it all about economic stability? Is it all about debt or ability to raise the required revenue internally to fund the growth of this economy?
I would say 3 to 4 things. The first one is a prolonged COVID situation. The longer COVID is prolonged, the impact will be deeper and longer, and this will continue to affect economies around the world, including Ghana. The second one I talked about earlier is again linked to COVID. What happens to the financial markets? Because the longer it takes for things to normalize, the longer it will take for financial markets also to normalize. And countries like Ghana, who rely on the financial markets for financial resources for its development, will be affected, especially rollover risks. Because a lot of the debt to financial markets sometimes are rollovers, no? You take a 5-year, 7-year bond, when it's time to pay, you pay the interest, and then you say, I go to the market, I roll it over, okay? The principal. So to the extent that the market is not normalized, this may be a risk. So we're hoping that with vaccines and everything, COVID will at least be under control in the near future. One other huge risk that Ghana needs to really grab hold of is the energy sector risk. The energy sector is a huge problem in Ghana. We've talked about it. I think everybody knows that because of the oversupply of energy, because of the large numbers of contracts that exist on, at times, not very favorable terms. This has posed a big problem budget-wise, because today, government is having to pay tens of millions of dollars every year for electricity that it doesn't use because of those contracts. So to the extent that Ghana can work with its IPPs to address these issues and reduce the loss of the sector, this will help create fiscal space. But if Ghana is unable to do that, the debt of the sector will continue to rise. Ghana will continue to put more and more money into this, and it will affect your fiscal situation. This is a really risk, and we urge government once again. We are supporting them through the energy sector reform plan. We are supporting other actions through the budget support. You know, there's been some good things done. I mean, for instance, government has put a hold on all direct sourcing of these PPAs. Government has ensured now that the ministries and departments are paying their bills regularly. Privatization of ECG was going to be a positive step forward, and my understanding is government is still committed to that. Why it's a good thing? Not because we want to privatize ECG, because the losses arising from ECG today, inefficiencies, etc., is one of the big problems that is causing So to the extent that these things are not addressed, it will continue to pose a risk.
Mr. Lepo, let me come in, since you mentioned the ECG situation and then efforts to privatize it as well. Do I get from it that, one, you are in full support of active privatization in ECG in order to cut off the losses? And is it also true that because of how government handled the PDS issues, the bank had to hold back its energy support program for Ghana in terms of the financial support?
First, on your question about privatization, I am one person, and I believe the bank was, we don't believe we should privatize for the sake of privatizing. There are very good examples across the world of public institutions, SOEs, being very efficient, being commercially driven, etc. But it's been proven also that generally, empirical evidence shows that in these types of cases, a private operator is better placed to run such activities more efficiently, more cost effectively. So we feel that privatizing PDS will bring benefits to the country. With regards to the PDS issue, yes, as a result of the cancellation of the contract, you see, we are an institution, like I said earlier, that is made up of shareholders. The PDS issue and privatizing of ECG was being supported by the MCC, Millennium Challenge Corporation, US government. Obviously, when this happened, the US government had a position where it felt that certain things, it was not happy with certain things. So as a result, one, it held back its own support toward the energy sector, about $300 million. But that's for the US government to tell you more, the ambassadors. At the same time, US is on the board of the World Bank. So in those circumstances, we felt if you were to bring the budget support to the board, where the US has already cancelled its support in Ghana, the risk of US not approving this was large. And we felt that this is not a risk that was worth taking. So what we did, we worked with government. We did provide the money that we were supposed to provide, but we provided it in other projects, notably the jobs and skills for 215 million and $200 million, sorry, and 150 million for the e-transform Ghana project. So yes, it had an impact, but we have a good conversation ongoing with government. We had a good dialogue. We are confident that the energy sector reforms will resume after the elections, and we are hopeful that in the next 12 months we can bring budget support back to Ghana.
Mr. Lamport, as you wrap up on this whole discussion on the role of the World Bank in aiding the recovery of the economy, and I know that the World Bank always pushes for poverty alleviation and all the rest. Do you believe that in a country, and having worked in African and developing countries, and let's look at Ghana, can we alleviate poverty, or it just can be reduced? Because people think that, listen, there's a cultural element of people who feel that I should be poor.
This is a good question. I like it because I always tell even my colleagues at the bank, be careful what we say, how we say. Because if you look at the World Bank's twin goals, is to alleviate extreme poverty by 2030. It's a recognition that we can eliminate extreme poverty, but can we eliminate poverty itself? I don't think so. Let's be realistic. We can fight, reduce poverty. We can fight, reduce people who are extremely poor, but the world is a place where we have to be realistic. We can never, even in the most richest country in the world, there is always a small amount of poor people. My own country, Seychelles, the only country in Africa that is high income country, but we've got our segment of poor people. But so what I'm saying is, one is we need to be realistic. Ghana has done a lot of progress. The poverty numbers have come down a lot, especially in the years prior to, in the last 5 to 10 years. What we've seen is even the high growth, poverty has not come down that much, largely because of the investment was driven in petroleum sector, where a large number of poor people are not there. So Ghana has done progress in reducing poverty. It needs to continue to do so. But another thing linked to poverty, I know we have to stop, is inequality. Okay? Where are the poor? And how is the poverty distributed? This is a challenge that Ghana has, like many other countries. Some poor people are more in certain places than others. And it's best that for a country that, when you look at poverty, you also look at inequality. Finally,
again, I said final, but civil society groups have made a lot of concerns and raised a lot of red flags about corruption, be it this government, previous government, and all the rest. Is it a concern for you at the bank? And what is your fear about this ability to erode some of the programs that you are implementing, and even confidence in some of the programs that you are implementing in Ghana?
Look, like everybody, we are concerned of corruption. We don't like it because it's not good. It destroys, like we say, the social fabric. It destroys, it deprives the poor people, especially, of resources that otherwise should be going to them. But in Ghana specifically, like every other country, I've heard there's corruption in Ghana. I hear the minister, the president, talk about fighting corruption. I think corruption is something that everybody has to fight it. As the World Bank, as a non-political institution, we do not get into the nitty-gritty of this activity or that report and all. But we are very clear. We are against corruption, and what we do provide support. And for instance, we have 2 to 3 public finance management projects where we are helping government put in place structures and systems to improve revenue collection, to improve management of your budget, to improve public service delivery, to ensure that when you put the money in the budget, it's spent and spent well, and it goes where it has to go. Is there leakage? Obviously everywhere. But is there scope to improve? Definitely. And we stand ready to support Ghana in this process.
Mr. Pierre Laporte, World Bank Country Director for Ghana, Sierra Leone, and then as the Liberia as well. I thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it. I know that the debate will still go on in your offices in terms of whether the World Bank can be doing more than what they are doing for us. As my name is George Yafe. He has been PM Express Business Edition. Have a great day.